First thing on the agenda, as always, is the roll call and determination of a quorum. Amber, if you would, please.
Olson?
Here.
Kroger?
Here.
Costello?
Here.
Hadcock?
Here.
LaCroix?
Here.
Martinson?
Here.
Weifenbach?
Here.
Okrepke? Chapman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Amber. Just a reminder, if you do have a cell phone or pager, if you would please put it into the vibrate or self-destruct mode, whatever your choice. And we do also have speaker request forms. They're to your left, our right. And if you'd fill those out, they look like this. Put your name and also the agenda item on there. That way we'll make sure that as we work our way through the agenda, we do not overlook you. Next, as always, is our invocation. We do not have our pastor with us this evening, so if everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone. Next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I do have one item we do need to add this evening. It is an 88A, which is a set for hearing for a liquor license for the Lost Steer. That'll be 88A. Any additional items to be added? Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
The fill the boot information.
Very good. We're going to call that 93A. And let's go to Mr. Preston. Jim Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. This morning you were talking about an MDA.
Yep, that's what we just put on there.
Thank you.
93A. So far, additions to the agenda, we have an 88A, which is a set for hearing for a liquor license for the Lost Steer, and also an 93A, which is an MDA report on Fill the Boot from our fire department. Any additional items? Let's go to Alderwoman Patty Martinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add item Miss Wheelchair America.
Let's call that 93B. Any additional items? Any additional items? Not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the agenda as posted with the addition of 88A, 93A, and 93B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to the adoption, for the approval of the minutes for the June 5th, 2009 regular council meeting and the June 10th and 29th, 2009 special council meeting.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do not have any awards or recognitions tonight, so we will move into the swearing in of our new city council members. Mr. Preston. You, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Next thing on the agenda after the recess is to actually elect our new city council leadership. With that, how we will proceed is we will take nominations for the president of the council. We will hold the election for that, the balloting, and then we will go to the vice president of the council. This time, the chair will entertain any motions for nominations for president of the council. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Lloyd LaCroix for president of the council.
Very good. Correct. Additional nominations. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Karen Olson for president.
Okay, so far we have Alderman Lloyd LaCroix and Alderwoman Karen Olson. Any additional nominations? Any additional nominations? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the nominations. Okay, we have a motion and a second to close nominations. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We'll go ahead and pass the ballots down. If you would place one of the two, either Lloyd LaCroix or Karen Olson, on there and sign those. We are doing this exactly like we did last year, and that is the fact that we'll have you fill those out, put your name on, and they'll be entered into the record as far as how the votes came out. And Jim Preston, our city finance officer, will go ahead and give us the results. Just give us the name of who was the winner, please.
The new elected president is Lloyd LaCroix.
Very good. Congratulations. Now, just for information, the votes are public, so if anyone wishes to inspect those, you can actually go down to the end of the dais here, and you're welcome to take a look at those as far as how the ballots were cast. Next, we will actually elect the vice president of the council, and there again, we'll go through the same procedure. We'll look for nominations for those to be nominated for vice president of the council. Please turn your light. We have a light on from Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Malcolm Chapman for vice president.
Very good. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? If not, since we only have one, the chair would ask that nominations cease and that we go immediately to a voice vote for unanimous approval. Second. We have a motion and a second. And this, we're voting on whether or not Alderman Chapman becomes our vice president. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Malcolm. Very good. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the general public comment period. This is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. If you have any thing you'd like to talk to us about that is not on the agenda, I would ask that you fill out a speaker request form and turn it in. We do have one from Dan Wolken from Prairie Fire Investments. Now, please keep in mind, this is a period. This is a time for the council to listen. We do not get into discussions back and forth, and we do time this, so if you just watch the lights up here, you'll have 3 minutes, and when you get to yellow, you got 30 seconds, and when it hits red, we just ask you to wrap up your comments. Very good.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dan Wolken, and I'm representing Prairie Fire Investments. The issue I have this evening is regarding the sewer trunk line along Southside Drive. I believe most of you are aware of our position regarding the cost figures on the trunk line. I hope all of you received the information that should help you understand our position. Because there was confusion of my desire to attend the June 1st council meeting, I apologize to the council that I didn't have the opportunity so you could hear and understand Prairie Fire's side. I want the council to know our side and consider the facts. During the course of this project, my two partners, who were a big part of making things happen, unexpectedly died. As Prairie Fire may not be without blame, I also believe that the city is responsible for making many mistakes along the way as well. Our project was charting new territory utilizing the wastewater facility, and because of the growth that was taking place at the time in the city, I believe the city was looking too far down the road. The time frame that the city took to make the decisions on line size was beyond what was promised and very costly to us. We relied on the representations made by the city along the way, as shows in your information. Even though this was our project, it seems that all decisions were taken away from us as the city was looking at the bigger picture. I'm requesting that you reconsider your decision that was made June 1st without sufficient knowledge of the circumstances. The current status on building permits is damaging the people and entities that the city needs to be encouraging during these difficult times. It is my desire to resolve the issues and get an agreement that is both beneficial to the city and all parties involved. Time is critical. I want to thank you for your time to listen to the facts, and I do appreciate the work that the council and the mayor do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional items to be brought in front of the council that are not on the agenda? Any additional? I do not have any additional speaker request forms. If not, we will move on. We are on to the non-public hearing items, items 2 through 95. The chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period in items 2 through 69, please. 2 through 69.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Tim, did you want to talk to that motion, or did you have a question? Actually, since it's actually, whoops, let me turn that on. Actually, it's under public, general public comment period, so therefore we typically don't have back and forth. The only way it can actually be discussed at tonight's meeting would be to be placed on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present.
But it is on the agenda.
But this,
Could we continue with the committee then?
you can certainly put it on committee agenda. That's absolutely appropriate. It'd be, I'm not sure if we can actually make a motion tonight. If you just want to place it on like legal and finance or public works, you can certainly do that.
Okay, if I could just have one moment.
Absolutely. Sam, I think your speaker's off there.
The reason I was asking is that this was published on the agenda. So what I was hoping is I think legally we could take action because it is published on the agenda, but I think the better thing to do would be to continue this to a committee hearing where we can have all of the attachments and everything linked and have an opportunity to review the entire request.
Okay. Let's just get clarification from Jason. We'll figure out where to go from there. Jason, did you understand the question? The question is, since it actually appears on the agenda but under public, general public comments, would it be appropriate for the council to take action without unanimous vote of the council?
I do not believe it would at this time, and if the council wants to discuss the matter, I would suggest that we do so in executive session, as this is a pending or a potential litigation matter.
Okay, but we could take it up in executive session tonight? Yeah. Okay. And then you would certainly have the option to put it on any agenda.
So we need to continue item 1 until after executive session.
Jason, I don't know if we need to continue because
I don't recommend continuing the item. The item on your agenda is simply a presentation from a member of the public. There's no item on the agenda that the council is being asked to act upon. So if you want to do that, you would need to add something to your agenda to do so. I think it might be best to wait until a discussion can be held in executive session.
One more question relating to this, Mayor, that I think it's an important question. Can members of the public add an item to the agenda and ask for council action that night, either continuation or action or denial? And that's really the...
It's a good question. Jason?
Generally, members of the public cannot add items to the agenda. In this case, Mr. Wolken expressed his interest in coming to the council and making the presentation, so the staff added it under general public comment, where it would have ended up if he would have just showed up and filled out a speaker request form. We did that because we knew that he intended to appear and make that presentation. We wanted to give fair notice to the council that he might be here.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't want to belabor this, but I'm not sure if Mr. Wolken thought that we would be discussing his item tonight or not. I mean, if he asked to be put on the agenda, I'm assuming that he may have thought that we were going to discuss this prairie fire tonight.
Jason?
I don't know that that's really relevant, whether or not he thought it would be discussed or not. The only item that is on the agenda is that presentation from him. So it doesn't change the legal status of the item and how it's presented on the agenda, the subjective perception of the person who asked to have the time.
Mr. Mayor, one more question.
Go ahead, please.
If a person from the public wants to put something on the agenda and they believe they did, and they get on the general public comment, maybe I'm speaking for Mr. Wolken and I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Just, I'm going to, typically to have something placed on the agenda, that is a privilege held by City Council and also by the mayor and staff. The public typically, like any other procedural motion, would actually typically need to come through either through the mayor's office or through one of the council members and have them place it on the agenda. I don't think there's a mechanism for the council to place something for deliberation directly on the agenda without basically going through one of the elected officials. Jason, am I close? I know that's the case in the legislature.
Yes, I believe that's exactly right. And an example in a slightly different context might might make it a little more clear. If a member of the public came and asked for the council to adopt an ordinance to outlaw cats, certainly the council could, at a later date, take that matter up and take action on it. It would not be appropriate at that meeting for the council to take up that ordinance, though.
One more question, Mr.
Go ahead,
Is there a
please.
time frame on prairie fires? On what, has he been given a time frame? That
Mr. Green?
I think I'd prefer to discuss specifics on this in executive session due to the potential litigation aspect on this.
Thank you.
Okay. I assume we'll be talking about this in executive session. Okay, very good. Thank you for that discussion and that clarification, everyone. Okay, so we are on to to the public comment periods 2 through 69. 2 through 69. I do not have any speaker request forms on any items 2 through 69 inclusive. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to any item 2 through 69? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period on items 2 through 69. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the consent item calendar, items 2 through 62 inclusive. 2 through 62 inclusive. Is there any council member that would like any item 2 through 62 inclusive removed from the consent calendar or the staff? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remove item number 41.
41. Very good. Any additional items to be pulled from the consent calendar? So far, we have item 41. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 2 through 62 inclusive, with the exception of item 41, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to item number 41, which is under Legal and Finance. I'd ask the Chairman, Alderman Quaker, to read in item number 41, please.
Item 41 is to acknowledge the report regarding the trash pickup schedule. Move to acknowledge the report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge the report. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like for our Public Works Director just to give the same report tonight for the benefit of those who watch on Public Access Channel. I know there were a few phone calls that I fielded just about the schedule of trash during holiday weeks, and I thought our Public Works Director did a great job of that at Legal and Finance.
Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The trash pickups, when we have altered schedules due to holidays, snow events might be another case where we'd have an altered schedule. We do our best to put a PSA out, and it's usually picked up very well by the radio media, the print media, and also the televised media. We also post on our website, the City of Rapid City's website, a altered schedule throughout the year. So if you want to see for Labor Day, Veterans Day, any of the various holidays, what the altered schedule will be for your personal pickup. We also do try to get other information out through other media as they come about. We are looking at trying to get something on public access television in the future because we do know there are a number of people that actually watch those channels as well. So we try to get the word out there as best we can. We rely heavily on the media to pick up the stories.
Very good. Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor,
Just
sir.
one more question. Robert, in your opinion, should we think about putting a message of some sort on water bills as they go out to the public?
Mr. Ellis.
We've talked about that internally, and I don't know that there's a lot of benefit to that because the bills come out at different times of the month for different customers, so they might come early, they might come late. It's difficult to time that just right where people will keep that fresh in their mind when the holiday comes. We'll continue to explore ways to get the message out there, but I think for right now the process we have works fairly well.
Anything else? Motion on the floor is to acknowledge a report. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on to the continued consent items, items 63 through 69, and I see a note here, staff has nothing to pull. Anyone from the council wish any item 63 through 69 inclusive to be pulled from the continued consent calendar? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the continued consent calendar, items 63 through 69 inclusive.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of this consent calendar to include the dates as outlined on the agenda. We have, let's see, 63, 64, 65 will be continued to the July 20th, 2009 meeting. And items 66, 67, 68 will be continued to the August 3rd. And we have item number 69, which will be continued to the October 5th meeting. Everyone clear on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the end of the continued consent items. We're on to the non-consent items, items 70 through 95, 70 through 95 inclusive. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 70 through 95. So moved. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We do have a number of speaker request forms. We have sorted this by items, so we're not jumping back and forth. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take all the speaker request forms per item. The first item that we have a speaker request form is on item number 80, everyone. Item number 80. And we have a speaker request form from Peter Schmidt. And there again, this is a time, we do time this to 3 minutes, so I know, Mr. Schmidt, you've been through the routine, so if you just watch the lights.
Okay.
And if you'd just there again introduce yourself for the record, please.
Okay, hello, my name is Peter Schmidt. My wife, Mike, and I own the property at 1819 West Boulevard. Since the last meeting 4 weeks ago, we had a chance to meet with 2 members of Historic Preservation. There were 3 city council members present. Karen Bowman was present. And we did get a chance to explain why we did what we did in a little more detail and explain all the other options. I did list out those options and email them to everybody, so if anyone has questions about what they read or if you want a copy of that, I can email it to you right now. But I really just want to use my couple minutes to say that we had no idea that it would cause, that people would get so upset. That wasn't our intent. We didn't intend to make anybody mad. We were really just trying to take an old house that really was in very poor condition. I mean, we had to replace these windows. It wasn't an option. They've been leaking for so long that it was causing a lot of damage to the inside and the outside of the house. I talked to Mike Demersman, who a previous owner of the house. He couldn't believe that those windows haven't been replaced yet. Anytime you replace a window in the boulevard, you are not in front of City Council. The reason that we are is because 4 of the windows were, the rough opening was smaller with the replacement window. And because the windows were original to the house, they were 70 years old, by removing an original feature, technically it is an adverse effect, but windows aren't designed to last forever. Repairing the original windows wasn't an option. It is so much more efficient, so much less expensive. There's a $1,500 tax credit for new windows, but you don't get any of that tax credit if you restore your old windows, and you don't get nearly as an efficient a product. So I explained all that in the email. I'll be here all night. If anyone has questions, please let me know. Congratulations to all the people who won their election. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Dave Vial, 3018 Morning View on item number 80. There again, Dave, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
David Vial. I guess you may have received in your mailbox today, on the cover it said the Schmidt House windows. And if you do have that, that would be great. The second page is actually the items that I brought forth and is actually what I'd be speaking on right now. Does everybody have that in front of them?
I believe everyone has it in their packets.
Okay. If you would go to the second page that says the Peter Schmidt Windows, 1819 West Boulevard, dated June 23rd. Essentially, is what I tried to do there is explain what the original windows were to the home, being a wood exterior, a single glaze, authentic divided light. The next paragraph goes into what was the windows were replaced with, which, as far as the Historic Preservation Commission, we have some concerns with being aluminum clad exterior, a one light versus the authentic divided lights. And basically the changing in size, as Peter mentioned as well. And then essentially what the commission would like to see. Obviously, repair of the original windows would be the first item we'd like to see, but we certainly would like to see a wood exterior to the windows versus those aluminum clad. We'd like them to go back to the size the original windows were, and we would also like to have the either authentic divided light or the simulated divided light, which is a bar applied both permanently interior and exterior, both being of a wood material versus aluminum clad. And the items that you see thereafter are basically just some research that was done proving that, yes, that type of window is available. Basically, in my interpretation, what was purchased was just a standard one light, basically off the box window. And there are certainly more than 3 companies, but that's what you have items listed there with prices indicating that what we are requesting is certainly available. And if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from John Wagner, 1901 West Boulevard. Mr. Wagner, there again, if you would just so kindly identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. John Wagner and members of the council. Hopefully we're here for the last time on this issue. I have handed out what Dave referred to, and I would point out that really the issue here is whether or not there are feasible and prudent alternatives. The state law says that if there are, then you must not grant the relief that the homeowner is requesting.
No.
And Dave has just testified to what the 3 possible alternatives are. All of them are feasible and all of them are prudent. And on the other hand, if there are no feasible or alternative, feasible and prudent alternatives, then you can grant the relief to the homeowner. I would request the council follow the state law. It's set forth in section 1-19A 11.1. I've given you a copy of that in the past. There are, in fact, prudent and feasible alternatives in this case, and therefore the request for relief should be denied. And I would add that that particular section also refers to minimizing harm to the historic district. Any of those alternatives would minimize harm to the historic district. And I would request, therefore, that you deny the homeowner's request. Thank you.
Thank you. That does it for item number 80. We do have a couple speaker request forms on item number 81. The first one is from Don Valley from Hermosa. Don, did I get, is it Valley? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. There again, if you would identify yourself for the record, this is on item number 81, which refers to the request for a Cowboy Fest Draw Association Fest Draw contest at Cabela's.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
When we first met about last week, we did not have the packet. I've since then delivered the insurance forms to the city attorney for covering insurance both on Cabela's and on the city on this agenda now. We also have a map that we have gone over with Chief of Police, and he would request that I talk to his range officer down there at the range at the police department, which we agreed to do. Also here I got letters from the mayor and chief public office, head of chief safety from Mitchell, and along with a letter from the sheriff from Mitchell on our sport that we do. And also another letter from the state fair here in South Dakota, where we have participated and put them on up there too. And I'd like to give that to the council at this time.
Did you have any other comments?
No.
Okay, very good. You go ahead and hand them down to Alderman Chapman at the end there. He'll just pass them along. Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form on item 81. Jim Bob is in Durus. Am I close? Can't quite read the writing there. Andreas from Oak Creek,
Yeah.
South Dakota. You might have to explain where Oak Creek is.
Yeah, it's one of them little towns if you blink and miss.
Okay, very good. And Jim, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Jim Bob Andrews. I'm from Oak Creek, South Dakota, and I'm here to support Donna on the Cowboy Fast Draw. We've been doing this for a number of years, and we really like to see the sport growing. And if you folks would like to, we'd like to have you come out and participate. So I'm just here to back up Don.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We do also have a number of speaker request forms on item number 86. We have a Bruce Backens, item number 86. There again, Bruce, if you would just identify yourself for the record. I believe the council certainly knows you, but if you'd identify yourself for the record.
I'm Bruce Backens. And I guess I'm requesting the location for the statue, and then we can start our fundraising. And sooner the better, I would think. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Ann Van Loan, item number 86. Hi, Ann. If there again, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure. I am Ann Van Loan with Western Resources for Disabled Independence. And I'm here in support of having a cenotaph, a memorial for people with disabilities. Scotty Backens, as many of you know, was just an icon for disability because he never complained. He went on. He was on every board. He kept going when the pain was so great. And he was the spokesman for not only physical disabilities, but mental and emotional learning disabilities. He was on our board. He was on our advisory committee board. He was on peer support board. He was the person that just gave life to people with disabilities. So this cenotaph or memorial is not Scotty Backens, but it is all about people with disabilities. And what better place to put it is in Memorial Park. If anybody has questions, I'll be here.
Thank you, Ann. We also have a speaker request form from Dallas Dietrich. again, Dallas, if you just identify yourself for the record for us, please.
Mayor Hanks and council, thank you for this opportunity. I've been involved with people with disabilities for a long time, going all the way back to Mayor LaCroix. Some of you may remember him. And, you know, I knew Scotty Backens personally, and it took me a long time to talk him into participating in Ski for Life. And so I was totally sold on his ability to break down barriers and to say, I can do it. So again, I want to reiterate what Ann said, and that is that this wouldn't be a memorial to Scotty Backens personally, but to the disabled community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dallas. We now go to item number 87, and I have a number of speaker request forms. First one is Jim Stedgy. I'll get it right, Carl. And there again, if you would just
Hi, I'm Jim
you know what? My apologies, Jim. We had one other one from 86, I believe.
Okay.
And I apologize. Somebody was waving at me here. Tom, why don't you go ahead and come up? I don't see your speaker request form here, but I'll find it just very shortly. Tom Collins. The number, oh, that's why. Oh, it's written on top. There again, Tom, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Tom Collins, and I chair the Rapid City Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities. Our committee goes back 25 plus years. Scotty Backens and I were charter members of the committee, and it's been our committee's goal for a long, long time to enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's the objective, the primary objective of our committee. Scotty and I worked hand in hand with the entire committee, doing all sorts of things, co-sponsoring picnics with Western Resources for Disabled Independence, sponsoring and co-sponsoring wheelchair basketball games. We've done that for several years. And it's our committee's unanimous decision to totally support this memorial for Scotty on behalf of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I did also overlook speaker request form on item number 80. Micah, did you want to speak? Well, go ahead and get all those, and then we'll go on to item number 87. And the record, Micah, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Micah Schmid. I'd just like to begin by reminding everyone that we are here to determine if the property owner explored all prudent and feasible alternatives to resolve this issue. That's what we're here to decide, because it's easy to get caught up in issues that don't necessarily pertain to our situation. And again, yes, we feel that we did. Since we last met in front of the City Council, Peter and I met with Historic Preservation and 3 City Council members, and we felt that that went really well. But then we hear the Historic Preservation just came up, and we didn't get any of that information that they gave you. We didn't hear any objections after that meeting. And yeah, none of those objections were brought to our attention until now. Peter and I sent an email, which I think Peter referenced, to all of you that explained why we did what we did, and it's too lengthy to read here with only 3 minutes to talk. So if you didn't get a copy of that email, we can email it to you tonight, so you have that. Also, we considered all of the options and issues that John mentioned in his talk to you guys, and yeah, none of those options were feasible. We considered each of those, and we ask that you please agree with the city staff recommendations that all options were considered. We hope that this issue can be resolved and that you rule tonight so that we can put this issue behind us and continue to put all of our free time and money into making our neighborhood a better place, because Peter and I both grew up in the neighborhood and we love it, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Okay, Jim, come on back up. My apologies, we had to put you on hold there for just a second, but you're so special, we wanted you to have 2 opportunities.
Oh, I see that. Hi, I'm Jim Stedgy. I have the property on the south side of the present substation at 2510 Fifth Street. And this is in regards to the fence again. I am in receipt of a new proposal of a 8-foot concrete fence. Now they're proposing that to go around that. I have a couple objections. Number one is the heat. Concrete will absorb that heat. In a day like today or hotter, that's going to be torture. If there's a wind blowing, my neighbor, Mr. Brown, will get none of it. The second objection I have is that is going to act as a snow fence during the winter months. That snow is going to go over the top and lay right in that alley. I would recommend that Power and Light take a good look at the fence that is around Dakota Supply Group across from the post office on the north side of Maine. That's a nice looking fence, brick columns, wrought iron, curved at the top. It would allow air to circulate, and it would also keep people out. I thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We also have a speaker request form from George Brown. Again, George, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
George Brown, 335 Cleveland. My property is directly across the alley from the current power station. Now, really, I want to expand this a little bit beyond just the fence. This total project I'm totally against, and we have about 30 people in our neighborhood that feel the same way. The expansion is going to be three times the size that it is now, and that fence will have to go all the way around it. Of course, when I look at this diagram, I think it's wrong because there are stipulations and variances and setbacks that have to be taken into effect, and I realize that this step is just about the fence, and it goes to zoning and planning for all the other hoops they have to jump through. But I'm totally against a concrete fence. The other thing that Jim forgot to mention is it cuts my visibility off to Skyline Drive, to Fifth Street. It'd be like a Berlin Wall, just 20 feet from my property. And so I'm totally against that. Beyond that, I'll attend the rest of the meetings and follow the rest of the hoops they have to go through. But I want to thank the council for listening. Somebody asked me yesterday, who's representing you guys? I said, we can't afford an attorney, but we've got a council people, all our council people are our attorneys. So we hope that you'll take our best interests at heart and really take a close look at this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Aida Compton. I can never pronounce that name, but did I get it right? But she serves a heck of a chai tea. Again, if you'd identify yourself for the record,
My
please.
name's Aida Compton, that's AIDA, and I want to thank you for listening tonight. I am opposed to the fence around the substation. I would like to remind the council that the homes in that area were built around 1952, so they're about 57 years old. I believe the homes were there first, and what this is doing is it's allowing for the substation to increase in size, and that's not what we bought our homes there for. Some people who have lived in that neighborhood since the homes were built, that's not what we anticipated when we moved into that neighborhood. There's beautiful trees, there's a sense of well-being in that area, there's the hospital, the schools, grocery stores. It's a neighborhood, and it shouldn't become this industrial corner, and that's what I oppose, that it's going to become an industrial-looking corner, and it's our neighborhood. You know, it's where our kids play, it's where we relax, it's where people like George like to look outside and see trees and not a big wall. I live 4 houses down from there, and I am vehemently opposed to this project. Thank you. And I don't know if everybody is going to be able to speak tonight, but I know there's people here who may not speak, and I just want you to raise your hand if you live in the neighborhood, just so you see how many people are here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have a speaker request form from Ed Thompson, Cleveland Street. Again, Ed, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Ed Thompson. I live basically across the street from this project. I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council and planning commission and the gentleman from Black Hills Power for the informative meeting they put together at the community center. Once again, it's on the fence height. You know, the fence is to protect the public from this equipment in a neighborhood where it probably shouldn't be. As everyone's probably aware, the block between Oakland and Cleveland on 5th Street sits on a hill. Well, pretty much any type of 8-foot fence is going to impede the visibility there, and it's already poor because of the hill on either end. You know, it's a main artery for the schools that set back in there, both South Park Elementary and South Middle School. So during the fall and winter, during school, there's lots of traffic that goes through there. It's hazardous in foul weather as it is. I think we'd see traffic accidents increase because of any type of fence that's put in there. You know, a few fun facts on this. The current substation that sits there is 3,744 square feet. The proposed addition to that is 14,040 square feet, which would end up with a whopping total of 17,784 square feet of substation on the corner in our neighborhood. Despite concerns of noise and eyesore and everything else, once that's in, and they already have this small substation, and the plan is, you know, well, the equipment's there and the lines are there, so let's add to it. Well, how long is it going to be till they want to add to this other one, and we're going to have a power station in the middle of town? So I'm not really, I'm totally against the fence. As far as owning a property right there, I'm not willing to sacrifice my peace in the neighborhood or the equity in my home for Black Hills Power's convenience at adding on to this location. Other than that, I guess, you know, I don't have any problems if they want to update the equipment that they have there existing, but I don't think adding this is proper, or any type of fence that could be put around the property would be advantageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We also have a speaker request form from Corey Singes. Singsas.
Hello. Corey Singsas. I live across the street from the proposed substation, and I attended the meeting a month or so ago, and I wasn't satisfied with the information I got from Black Hills Power and Light. I thought it was vague and speculative. There was no guarantees that they were going to protect our property values, our noise levels, the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and I just think the neighborhood needs to remain a neighborhood, and this should be put in a non-residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. We also have a speaker request form from Stephen Dunn, Black Hills Power.
Stephen Dunn, Black Hills Power. I guess I'll stick with the fence site exception for today. In response to last week's Public Works meeting, we explored a few different options, and that's all it really was exploring a few options. We submitted some concrete wall, some preformed concrete walls as possible alternatives, but what we're saying is we're open to something besides the chain link with barbed wire. We're willing to work with you guys on that. For now, what we're saying is we're willing to go a different route. Again, proposed would be the 8-foot tall wall, concrete wall, or of some sorts, without the barbed wire. So I think that would be pretty beneficial to the neighborhood. And again, what we're just looking to do, we're doing everything we can. I guess we feel as though we've addressed the majority of the concerns that have come up, noise levels, all that stuff. We've done our best, and we're just looking to get this fence site exception through so we can continue on with the process. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Kevin Lewis, 343 Cleveland Street. There again, Kevin, if you just identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Kevin Lewis. Along with my wife, Lori, we own 343 Cleveland, which is the subject property here that Black Hills Power would like to acquire, and we are the most popular people in our neighborhood at the moment. We are, of course, for the fence height exception for several reasons. One, it would help sell our property, but two, they're designed to keep things out. And it's right there on the corner. Right now, we have two 50-foot spruce trees on the 5th Street side of our property. And those don't seem to impede anyone's view of the traffic coming down down 5th Street. 5th Street, I will tell you, you can start at the top at the speed limit and just coast, and you can be at 50, 60 miles an hour by the bottom of the hill without any problems. I have had vehicles in my lawn during the winter time. Since the city expanded the bike path up to Oakland and it moved our fence back, now the cars aren't hitting our fence anymore. They're just staying and making big ruts in the boulevard there, where I can't get any grass to grow anyway because of the mag chloride that is, dumped on the hill to keep it from icing up. And I've also had my fence on the alley side has been hit by dump trucks and various things there, so my fences are out of kilter. So a good strong fence is necessary. We have a lot of people who walk down that street, walk down 5th Street, coming from the hospital. About 2 months ago, we had somebody come from the hospital who just checked out, decided they wanted to camp out in Black Hills Power property over there. And so, we called the police with that. I think it's important that a fence be put there to keep out on this new substation. I think this new substation would be good for the public, but that'll be another meeting. This is just about the fence. And as far as site triangle or coming up to the sea, coming down 5th Street, I think those big spruces we have don't impede anybody from seeing up the hill. The biggest thing is people not judging speed coming down that hill. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Terry Charest. Terry, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
My name is Terry Charest. I own the property directly across from where they would put the substation and the fence. And the concerns that I have are that the fence, a concrete fence would not fit the residential area. Everyone in the neighborhood, owns homes, so I feel like that would be a detriment to the residential area. And the traffic problems. I've operated a daycare in the home that I have for 13 years, and we've seen many accidents on that hill. And I do believe that pulling out on that street is a definite traffic problem. So my concerns are about the fence and also about the substation, just because I run a daycare and I wondered about the safety of the voltage and everything that goes along with a huge substation. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. Now, I do not have any additional speaker request forms on item 87. Does anyone else wish to speak on item 87 before we move on? Okay, very good. We are on to item number 93A. Mr. Bussell is going to give us a report about the MDA Fill the Boot campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just appreciate the opportunity to come up here and report on another successful Fill the Boot campaign. As you all know, May 27th, 28th, and 29th, we held our annual Fill the Boot campaign, and this year we were able to raise $35,714 for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. This total falls a little short of where we were last year with the $43,500, but I would like to point out that I feel like that total is just a little more impressive, and for a few reasons. One, we all understand that it's a tough economic climate right now, and charitable organizations throughout the country are seeing a decline, and so we were very pleased with that total. Second, we were off the street this year. We were in private parking lots, and that just goes to show that the people that live, work, and play in Rapid City went out of their way to come make donations and come find us, and we appreciate that. And finally, I don't know how much you folks know about the process, but this is traditionally an endeavor that the International Association of Firefighters takes up, and it's traditionally a union event. This year we had 100% department, yeah, exactly. We had battalion chiefs, We had our operations chief was out, our front office staff came out, and we also had a member of the city council come join us, and I'm told by the MDA staff that is absolutely unheard of. So we're not here for a pat on the back this evening. I'm here because I want to thank you as the council for supporting us. We have a couple more events coming up, and we're going to partner with some of the volunteer fire departments throughout the county. They want to get on board with it also. And we also just want to make sure that we thank the Rapid City community. Like I told you last year when I gave you my report, we stood on the corner and held boots and let the folks come to us. So the Rapid City community deserves a big thank you, and we appreciate your support, and thank you again.
Jim, before you leave, I'm still waiting for my picture of Mayor Munson from Sioux Falls wearing the Rapid City hat.
You're going to be waiting for a while. Mayor Munson declined to participate. He didn't want to turn it into a competition, and I would imagine that just he didn't want to be sized for a T-shirt. So I won't be collecting your T-shirt size, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate your support.
I'll put it this way, I won't let it pass unnoticed, so next time I talk to him.
I'm sure you won't. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all the firefighters for their hard work, and congratulations. That is all the speaker request forms I have for items 70 through 95. We'll try one more time. Anyone else wish to speak on any items 70 through 95? Not, the chair would look for motion to close the public comment period at items 70 through 95, please. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 70, please.
Item number 70 is first reading of ordinance 5519, an ordinance revising the off-street parking requirements by amending section 17.50.270 municipal code. Move approval of first reading.
We have a motion and a second for approval of first reading, ordinance 5519. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 71, please.
Item 71 is first reading of ordinance 5521, an ordinance to create a sidewalk vendor permit by amending subsection 12.20.020 of the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of first reading of ordinance 5521. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to let the council know that we received some proposed changes to that ordinance by a potential vendor. If council members from Public Works didn't get those changes, I'll make sure that they get in your boxes. Just take a look at them before second reading, please.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval of first reading of ordinance 5521. Any further discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 72, please.
Item 72 is ordinance 5522, first reading, an ordinance to create a sidewalk vendor license by adding chapter 5.56 to the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of first reading of ordinance 5522. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 73, please.
Item 73 is first reading of ordinance 5520, an ordinance to require a majority vote for the election of the offices of mayor and alderman by adding section 1.16.030 to chapter 1.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Move approval of first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of first reading of ordinance 5520. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 74, please.
Item 74 is first reading of ordinance 5523, an ordinance amending 17.06 of chapter 17 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property as requested by Rising Properties LLC for rezoning from medium density residential district to general commercial district on lots 15 and 16 of block 10 of Foreman Edition, located at 727 Fairview Street. Yield to the floor.
Could we have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I realize that this is first reading and it looks like it's going to the Planning Commission, but I would like to ask two questions of our Growth Management Director. One is if you could identify where this expansion, what type of an expansion would be occurring, and whether this would be a rezoning to general commercial or general commercial with a planned development designation.
Okay, Marcia, can you identify the location or whether or not there's going to be an overlay?
The property is directly east of the medicine shop. There's an existing small white single-family residence on the property. The intended use, as I understand it from speaking with staff who've been in contact with the applicant, is it's for a parking lot to serve the medicine shop. And yes, they have filed the planned development designation, so if the rezoning comes forward, that will be in place, and the stipulation of approval would be approved in conjunction with that rezoning.
Very good. Alderman Quaker, anything else you have before?
No, sir.
Very good. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Marcia, by chance, do we have any input from the neighbors on that property at this time?
Marcia?
I believe there will be some folks at the Planning Commission on Thursday. At least one neighbor had spoken to me, indicated they would be there. The notices would go out for that meeting in front of the Planning Commission.
And you would forward those to the City Council, if we could, please?
They will be attached online as the comment section, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Marcia.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is approval of first reading of ordinance 5523. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 75, please.
Item 75 is second reading of ordinance 5517, an ordinance revising permitted and conditional uses and area regulations within the airport zoning district by amending section 17.58 of the municipal code. Move approval of second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of second reading of ordinance 5517. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. In the past, there have been people residing or at least registered to vote out at the airport, and I'm wondering if residences are still permitted under this ordinance.
Okay, let's go to Marcia Elkins, Growth Management Director.
Individual residences have never been permitted at the airport. We are adding some language under M, which would make crew quarters necessary for airport and emergency operations. I believe that is a permitted use at the airport. So it would just be when it was accessory to some other type of operation, such as an air ambulance.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir. Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval, second reading of 5517. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 76, please.
Item number 76 is second reading of ordinance 5516, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2009. Move approval of second reading.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Motion on the floor is second reading of ordinance 5516, which is an ordinance regarding the supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2009. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Item number 77, please. Mr. Kroger.
Item number 77 is a request by Spurlick Consulting Incorporated for Joe Muth at Doik LLC for a preliminary plat located the northwest terminus of Bunker Drive. I would move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations for the preliminary plat. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 78, please.
Item number 78 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Sandra Frederickson for a layout plat and a preliminary plat located at 4330 Jackson Boulevard. I would move approval with stipulations.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval stipulations of layout and preliminary plat. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 79, please.
Item number 79 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the waiver of right to protest a future assessment for the installation of a sidewalk along Corral Drive located at 3761 Corral Drive. I would move approval.
Do we have a second, please? We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I believe this was an item that came through Public Works, and we had some discussion about it. And Robert Ellis got volunteered to look into this, so I wondered if that was going to continue to go forward.
Let's go to Robert Ellis. Or do you want to, let's go to Marcia Elkins.
She's the one that volunteered him, so.
Okay, that works.
That's related to item 88, and Mr. Ellis and I have worked out a division of the labor between our departments. Mr. Ellis will be taking care of the assessment side of that, and we'll be working on the grant side.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
My questions were just related to the two items because we do recognize that this is a street that
children may necessarily walk along, and so the possibility of sidewalks here seems to be something that needs to be discussed in a serious way.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval of the warp for Corral Drive. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're back to Legal and Finance Committee items, item number 80, and Alderman Quaker.
Item number 80 is request for SDCL 1-19A-11.1, final determination relative to the proposed installation of windows at 1819 West Boulevard, located in the West Boulevard Historic District. Yield to the floor.
Okay, could we have a motion, please? We have a motion for discussion, please. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion on that motion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just asking for clarification on the motion. The requirement of the council at this point is to make a finding as to the feasible and prudent alternatives, whether or not they have been investigated. And I'm curious as to whether the intent is to approve a finding that they have been investigated or that they have not been.
Okay, let's go back to the motion maker. Okay, everyone clear? The motion on the floor would be to acknowledge that they have, help me out here, Jason, with the specific language because we're dealing with state statute here.
That there is no feasible and prudent alternative to the proposal, and that the proposal includes all possible planning to minimize harm to the historic property.
Okay, very good. So the motion on the floor would in essence state that the council finds what that language which is required under state statute to grant the exception. Okay, very good. The motion on the floor would grant him the ability to keep the windows. Okay. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jason Green, for explaining that to me, because it's a little bit confusing on what we're supposed to do. I guess I have questions from whoever represents Historic Society. I mean, last time I asked the questions on if they could get together and resolve this. One of the things that's important to me, number one, is that this Historic Society was put in place by the city under state statute. If there's a process in place, we're determining whether that process took place or not. I'm not sure that.
Okay. I tell you what, let's address that. Does anyone from Historic Preservation like to take that on?
I'd like to see whoever is in charge. I mean, who's in charge of making the final decision, Mr. Mayor?
Well, the City Council makes a final determination, but as far as the recommendation from Historic Preservation, Pat, or would be John? Who's actually chair of Historic Preservation at this time? Chair's not here? Okay, who can speak on their behalf? Okay. Very good. Jean, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Jean Kasloff, Rapid City Historic Preservation Commission. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Gene, what I'm looking for, Mr. Mayor, is someone, because it seems like there's some split information on Historic Society's position on this, and I was hoping that the chair would be here so they could give us their recommendation. And I mean, I think that's when we talked about this last time, and one of my concerns was that we went back to the drawing board, looked at all the options. Now I've got two different distinct opinions on the options, and I was hoping that we would come to resolve without us having to,
I don't have in front of me what Peter Schmidt submitted. I had 3 different occasions asked to meet with him so that we could discuss this, and once after the City Council meeting last time, once after or during our meeting with the 3 council members, and then once by email. But he answered me and said, "Thank you, but I'll take it from here." So.
Thank you, Gene. I want to make a comment, Mr. Mayor, about this whole process. And one of the things that is concerning me is that state law basically dictates how the Historic Society will handle what we determine as a historic district. People live in the historic districts. I heard people that live there say tonight they live there because they like the district. One of the reasons that people like the district is because it's kept historical. I understand that at the point you want to do things to your house, and I understand those types of things, but I think there's a whole group of people that have to be taken into account here, and the people that live in the historic district there have concerns that we allow a window change, we allow this change, we allow that change, and pretty soon before you know it, the reason that the people live in the historic district has since been withered away. I personally don't live in the historic district because I don't want to deal with the historic part of it. I'm not a fan of it. I mean, I understand it and I enjoy the integrity of it. I do enjoy driving up and down West Boulevard and looking at the area. So I just want my colleagues to take in concern and help me understand. The city has put their money where their mouth is on West Boulevard. They've helped with the lighting there, and I know that the West Boulevard Association has helped bring that lighting back to historic type flavors there. We've kept it in a boulevard area. We've kept the driveways out of the people's front yards, and I know at one time there would have been considerations of doing that. I would hope to think that we wouldn't have been at this point tonight, that it would have been worked out. But if someone can explain to me why we think that we should override the historic district's decision tonight, then I'll enjoy that. And I'll yield to my colleagues for some help here. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for probably Karen Bowman. It's a staff recommendation, whoever is going to represent that recommendation.
Why don't you go ahead and state your question, if you would, please.
The recommendation that's linked online says that staff recommends that the City Council find that all feasible and prudent, and then the rest of the language. In state statute, it says that there is no feasible. So there's been a little change in the language there. So my first question is staff saying that all feasible and prudent alternatives have been? Is that where we're saying now?
Karen?
Thank you. Actually, that staff report should have said that the council needs to make the determination if all feasible and prudent alternatives have been explored. And that's the charge that you folks have tonight, is to do that. So I didn't mean it to say exactly the way it was put forward, and I apologize for that. So it should have said City Council needs to take a look at all the issues that have been presented and make a finding. If all feasible and prudent alternatives have been made, then he's allowed to go forward and keep his windows. If you find that he has not made all feasible and prudent alternatives, then he needs to bring more forward to you, or you need to make some other determination.
Mr. Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was one of the 3 council members present at the meeting, and I simply ask all sides to create a list of not what has been done, but of all feasible and prudent things that could be done, from regardless of price, taking the windows out or putting in new windows or tearing the house down, whatever the options might be, that you at least state that and say, these are the options, this is why this isn't prudent, this is why this isn't feasible. Karen, my question, you were at the meeting, do you think that that took place?
Karen?
Thank you. That discussion did take place, and I thought everyone understood what they were supposed to do, and I haven't seen what Peter submitted to you, but that was his charge, to get all the alternatives so that you had an option to make that determination. I think the historic preservation folks did the same thing, just so you had some balance there.
Okay. Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
My last comment, I think it's hard to solve problems when we're not talking with each other. And I think that's difficult. The point of that meeting was to get people in the same room and having a conversation about how to resolve this. And I think it's difficult when one side of the equation gives the city council something and then the other side gives the city council something. Why can't we talk and share what we're giving to each other and then work through those options? That's not done. As much as I hate to say this item needs to be continued, I think it needs to be continued. I would ask that the two sides sit down, what you gave us individually, share together and have that conversation and work out whatever the details are about what's prudent and what's not prudent. I think that's the best way to go, and I don't think that's been done, that aspect of it. I'm not sure if we think that if we hold whatever it is that we're making a recommendation on close to our chest and then show it at the last minute, that somehow that gives some side a leg up. I think that's nonsense. We need to be talking to each other. This issue, in my opinion, is a microcosm of a larger issue. I think that we need an ordinance here in the city of Rapid City as it relates to historic preservation. We need to update that ordinance or put it in effect. And then I think that people need to understand what they're truly getting into when they buy a house within the district. I think it's not fair to have someone buy a house and then later say, oh, by the way, and I'm not putting that on the Historic Preservation Commission. As I've said before, I think the title companies, realtors, and others in the community need to play a part in that to let people know what they're getting into. As Alderman Weifenbach said, he wouldn't buy a house in the district because he doesn't want to go through all that. Well, people need to know what all that is before they buy. As much as I hate to say this item needs to be continued, that's what I think. I won't make that motion yet, but that's what I think.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd have a question for Marcia.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I guess my question is Marcia, where are we at with this right now? As far as my understanding is we have one window that's been replaced, one that's not. On the, I believe it's the north side, is that right? Marcia?
I'm gonna let Karen answer those questions.
Okay.
She's been working with the commission on this.
Karen?
Thank you.
What has and what hasn't been done?
The items that we're talking about are actually 4 windows. 3 have been replaced and 1 has not been replaced. And the one that you're looking at on the north side, there's one on each side of a chimney, and one of those is new and one's old.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I guess the spot that we're in here is this has been going on for I want to say 2 months or a little bit longer. You know, we've at Legal and Finance, we asked them to sit back and go back and talk to each other and try to work things out. And I think that's happened 2 different times. So, you know, I understand where Mr. Chapman's going with that, but I think no matter what decision we make right here today, one side's not going to be happy. You know, in one phone conversation I had with the Historic Preservation was that, you know, they had these codes to keep the emotions out of it, and it's gotten to where it's very emotional today. I do think I'm going to support the motion on the floor, and the reason that I'm going to support it is because, you know, it's considered contributing, but, you know, they did go up in front of the board and they did get the addition approved with the windows prior. And that's one thing that I think that at that point in time, a lot of stuff could have been discussed and gone through at that time. But I really think we need to resolve the issue today one way or the other. And so I'll be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
First question, can I ask Malcolm a question, if that's okay with Malcolm?
Sure, go ahead. We'll see if he wants to answer.
Want to answer my question, Malcolm? Sure. Wasn't this like when you went and met with both sides, wasn't that for the resolution so we could find the answer or what we were looking for them both to talk at that meeting?
Alderman Chapman, would you like to
Thank you,
respond?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, and at that meeting, it was clearly stated that the Schmitz would submit something saying all of the alternatives that they looked at. And that's the way we kind of left the meeting. But I think what has happened, and again, I'm not finding blame, we have a couple of different sets of alternatives now. And I'm saying if there were different alternatives that were going to come forward, why not have another conversation and say, this is what we've come up with, this is what let's talk about it and figure out all the alternatives and what's feasible and what's not.
Thank you, Malcolm Chapman. I see both sides with Malcolm's point and Lloyd's. This is the 3rd time we've had a meeting with both sides. To me, everybody are adults, and it seems like at this point we'd be able to find a solution between the two. When I'm looking at this paper today, it has alternatives from 3 different suppliers that are close to the windows that were in there, and the windows that were in there, and the windows that are in there now are like 32 by 52, and the ones that are below are close to the 32 by 58 that were in there. So if you're looking at prudent and alternatives and all those things, then those windows at the bottom are closer than the rest. So it seems common sense that if you got your windows and you're wanting to replace them, I know, I'm not in the historic district, but I do have a historic building. We just fixed up what we had. It was cheaper that way. On this, I would have to say, if I had to vote tonight, that I would not go with the Schmidt family, because I'm looking at this and what we did as well, and there was alternatives in order to make this historic preservation house without making a cost to them as it's expensive. I think it is getting to be more emotional than it is common sense at this point, because if you look at the paper again, just looking at this paper, it's close to what the windows were. The windows that are in there now are 32 by 52. So again, we're looking at all feasible and possible alternatives, and it seems like the bottom or just fixing up the ones they had were cheaper than what they did. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Dumb question. If we fight in favor of the Historical Society, do they have the legal authority to enforce the replacement of the windows of Peter Schmidt?
Let's go to Jason Green. So the question is, if the council does not find, I'll tell you what, I'm going to attempt to actually frame this in the proper motion, and that is the motion on the floor, if it is approved, would find that the city finds that all feasible and prudent alternatives to the installation of the 4 windows and changes in window openings at 1819 West Boulevard have been pursued, and that all possible planning to minimize harm to historic property has been taken. That is the motion on the floor. Is everyone clear on that? Is that all right with the motion maker? Okay, just want to make sure. Jason, is there anything else I missed on there?
No. If I understood the Alderman's question, though, it was the opposite of that motion. If the council finds that all planning and all feasible and prudent alternatives have not been exhausted, what's the legal authority of the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah.
They would have to look to my office to take some enforcement action. I think more practically what that action on the part of the council does is it puts the ball into the Schmidt's court to come back to Historic Preservation with another proposal. And we could certainly end up in protracted litigation either way you go on this one, so I really wouldn't consider that as a determining factor in your decision. I think the question you have to answer is, have all of those alternatives been explored, and has all planning taken place to minimize the impact to the historic property? That's really the only issue.
Okay, Patty, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Yeah.
Anything else? Very good.
Yeah.
Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a difficult decision because we're talking about rights of property owners and the interest of the Historic Preservation Commission. I was one of the council members who attended the meeting with the Schmidts, and I have one question for Malcolm and for perhaps Aaron as well. But first of all, I'd like to say that as I've thought about this issue, it seems to me that we are dealing with, if this were a homeowners association and there were a set of rules as to how you're supposed to handle your home, which means the color of the paint or the type of shingles, or if you can have a clothesline, or any number of requirements that homeowners associations put in place, and the buyer of the home, knowing that the home is a part of that association, they agree when they purchase the home to abide by those rules. And so in my perception, it would seem that the historic preservation, the laws that apply to this, the district was formed, and it was formed by a vote of those people who lived within the district, and they've agreed to follow the rules. So I do think that that is, that we are being asked, just in something similar, to apply the association rules. In this case, it's the rules applying to the historic district. The other question that I would have for my colleagues is, having attended that meeting, I thought the Schmidts were going to bring forward a list of alternatives that they had looked at, and If I've missed that, I would certainly like my colleagues to who attended that meeting to tell me so. It certainly appears to me that I didn't receive that piece of information from the Schmidt family, and we did receive it from the Historic Preservation. And so my inclination at this point is in favor of I think I'm not in favor of the motion on the floor because I don't think they have all the reasonable and prudent alternatives have been explored. But I would like just a little affirmation from my colleagues who attended the meeting as to whether or not they felt they'd received that information from the Schmidt family.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Karen, to address your question first, what I was hoping for from the meeting from Mr. Schmidt was a printout essentially of what we received from the Historic Preservation Commission. And that's, here we have it from Historic Preservation, but not from Peter. Karen, you talked about the Homeowners Association, and I've never lived in a homeowners association, but from everything I know of these associations, you are aware of the covenants when you move in. With the historic district, that's not the same. I own a home in the historic district, and until this situation came about, I was not aware of the requirements on the windows. And apparently there's a small loophole with the building code where if you do not change the rough opening, then you don't have to get approval. And all the windows that you see that have been discussed that have been changed so far in West Boulevard, I believe they fell there. So this is a tough situation for me because it will apply to me personally. I have some questions here. Alderman LaCroix said something that led me to believe the windows were part of the approved with part of the addition. So would Karen Bullman, would you be the one to answer whether these windows were approved with the original addition approval?
Karen?
Thank you. No, these windows were not. The first approval that came through for that home was for the addition by itself. And these windows came after the fact, and they did not have that approval. They did come back, and that's where the problem arose, because they found that those windows that he was putting in were not appropriate for that house.
Yeah, thank you. My next questions are for Peter or Micah, whoever would be willing to entertain them. How many times were you contacted by Historic Preservation let's say in the last 2 months to get together and resolve this issue?
Peter Schmid. Since the last meeting, I emailed Jean Kesloff requesting, she had some information at the meeting about different window options, and I just wanted to know who she talked to, so that when I told her I would take it from there, it meant we would make the calls to the salespeople, we would measure our windows, and we'd find out. When we talk to salespeople,
Yep. The question was, how many times have you been contacted by Historic Preservation?
That email with Jean, that she responded to mine, we had back and forth, but that was it, wasn't it? I checked the meeting agenda. I wasn't on the agenda for their meeting. They didn't discuss it at their last Historic Preservation meeting. We really thought it was done.
Okay. So my next question for you, Mr. Schmid, is, okay, so you were leading into saying that you talked to Jean, heard of the places to look at for new windows, and when you did your research as far as replacement windows, what did you discover?
When I got a response from Jean that the windows she mentioned at our meeting that we went to with you guys was from Connex. We called Connex. They said we can get them, but no one we do a lot of work in the Boulevard, and no one does these windows. They do not go through this expense for bedroom windows, of all windows, that don't face the Boulevard.
What others, did you check any stores other than Connex?
We made calls around to the Pello store, and we checked online. But all those options that you got today from Historic Preservation, we've never seen them. I have no idea what they say, what the numbers are, anything. But we made a judgment call 2 months ago.
Right, so that was my next question then. I guess this is for Dave. did you conduct this research on the windows, if I may, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor?
Dave, if you could come forward so we could talk into the microphones at the podium so we can have it recorded.
mistakes. Dave, come by.
Sorry.
The research I did was basically done on June 23rd.
So the research was done on June 23rd, and oh, okay. I was looking at the cover letter, which is dated June 6th.
Mhm.
But okay, this is dated June 23rd. Was this information delivered to Mr. Schmid?
No, it was not.
Is this the right place to ask why not?
You can ask the question.
Why not?
I intended to be honest with you. I wanted to have someone proof it, and that did not happen until basically yesterday. And I knew that we wanted to have it before so that we knew that there were prudent. Some of these options were discussed with Peter during our regular meetings on Friday, and concerns of what he had purchased versus what was truly available. And he looked at possible options, but wanted to keep what he had.
In my mind, I'm going back to what Alderman Chapman brought up about a major lack of communication on both sides. I think that as a commission, you are to be the leaders. You are to guide people when they get in these situations. You need to go the extra step beyond an email, beyond a phone call, to engage and solve these problems. And it just seems that that ball has been dropped. And from the homeowner side as well, I don't see the due diligence on either side in a timely manner. I'm going to yield the floor right now.
Okay, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Number one, this is a state statute. I guess if I live in an area, I would at least check and see if there is any statutes on my house or when I buy it. I don't know if they put that on there, but again, this is not like a homeowners association because legally that does not fly. But state statute by historic preservation is a lot different than a homeowners association. We as council members, I know, do not know all the rules on state statute on historic preservation, so I never said it wouldn't be hard to figure this out, but it seems like at this time, again, it's been said over and over again that both sides, one side has been telling them you can't do this, but I would hope at this point when this comes up again that we do the same thing to everyone on West Boulevard and not just these people. When this comes up, we follow through council with, if we're making one, we make all. At this point, if all prudent, I'll say it one more time. With my house, you could have fixed the windows and made it cheaper on yourself. You could have replaced the wood, put the windows back in, and used the panes if you wanted it cheaper. There is alternatives, and when you're looking at the house, you can find alternatives if you look. And I truly believe that. If you're looking for an alternative, you'd find it. If you wanted to do it your way, you probably did. Then there's the other side, I believe, too. It's my house kind of attitude, so I believe that sometimes comes into play. The communication, you can continue this, but I think you're going to find the same answers. We've had 3 meetings again, and you can have one more, and you can make adults communicate with each other, but after 3 times, I think we're done. I think we need to make a decision right now, and hopefully Historic Preservation has learned their side, and the homeowners that live in that area just from this case have learned that at this point they need to check and see if they're in historic preservation, and we work together on both sides so this issue gets solved. But thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Green, our city attorney.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Jason, did the city adopt the state code and policies? There's a policy and procedure in place. I don't understand why we're beating people up who volunteered their time to be on the historic society. I mean, isn't there's already a city ordinance in place is that correct?
Yes. Let's go to Jason Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a local commission that's been created by city ordinance, and the process that the commission undertakes is laid out by state law and through an MOU with the state. Essentially, our local commission acts on behalf of the state in the first instance in reviewing these applications. The local commission forwards their determination to the state, who reviews it and either decides they agree or disagree and returns it. If they disagree, or if the finding was that there is an adverse impact or that all prudent and feasible alternatives haven't been explored, then there's an appeal process to the council. And that's the final step in the process by state law and through the city ordinance.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
So that's where we're at right now with this process. This is the appeal to the council.
That's correct.
I'm not sure that it's the Historic Society's responsibility to take these numbers to Mr. Schmidt. We've had a couple conversations about this, and I understand the position that Mr. Schmidt is in, and I'm having a hard time understanding why don't we just get rid of the Historic Society if we don't believe in them? I mean, who appoints these people to their positions, Mr. Mayor?
Let's go to Jason Green. I'd answer myself, but I'll go to Jason Green.
The mayor makes the appointment with the confirmation by the council, with the council's approval.
There's something else that has been a little fuzzy area that I want to make sure that is clear, and I thought we talked about it and was clear the last time. When the addition, one of the reasons that my understanding is that the addition was ever approved, was this totally different, totally delineated from the historic prior to the property. And I want to make sure my colleagues understand that. The addition was not approved because it looked like the historic property. It was approved because it looked not like the historic property. And if I stand to be corrected, then someone can correct me. So I just want to make sure that we're talking about the facts and we go into this long he said, she said thing doesn't make any sense. We've got facts, we've got a process in place. We have a historic society in place. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what Ron just said, but I think what's difficult about this situation is that we have a council member sitting up here who has a home in the historic district who says he's not aware of what he can and can't do to his home. I think that helps create some of the confusion here. That when people spend as much money as you spend on a house, that you should know what you can and can't do. And I'm not saying that that's just the responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission. I mean, that's on the homeowner as well. I have to say, I'm a little disappointed that, and I've used the language myself, we're sitting on opposite sides of a table choosing sides. Your side brought this, my side didn't bring this, I brought this, you didn't, that sort of thing. And that's the problem here, as I see it. What I tried to get to at that meeting, and what I thought I asked, was that we don't choose sides. We talk about what's best for the historic district and how best to make that district vibrant, alive, in compliance, and all of those things. That's what I thought we were talking about, and how to get to that point. And obviously that's not happening. I disagree with my colleagues up here who say that we need to make a decision tonight. I guess I believe in the faith of compromise, that you can get together and do what we asked to be done at that meeting, which is to, if these are the alternatives, and this is it, just the three of them, and get together and talk about how to get to this point if these are the alternatives. If not, then what other alternatives are there? If there are more that exist, put them on the table, have a discussion about it, and if the reason why you can't do option one is because it's too expensive, then that doesn't become prudent for that family that owns the home. I mean, I think that we'll see that, and that's what I'm asking to be done. So after this lengthy discussion, I will say I would ask the council to continue the item for 2 weeks. Have that discussion.
Okay, we have substitute motion and second for continuation. We're gonna
Next council meeting, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
To the next council meeting. We are going to limit debate strictly to whether or not we're going to continue this. I think on this very topic, we have spent about a total of 4 hours now, and between all the different meetings. So I'm going to be extremely stringent on the rules as far as whether or not we're going to continue this item or not. So are there any further discussions on the continuation motion only, please? Seeing none. All those in favor of the continuation motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Quaker?
No.
Olson? Hoger? Costello?
No.
Babcock?
No.
LaCroix?
No.
Martinson? No. Weifenbach? Aye. Waugh? Aye. Chapman? Aye.
Okay, motion fails on a 6-4 vote. We're back to the original motion, and they're getting for clarification. What the motion is, by approving the motion, the City Council does find that all feasible and prudent alternatives to the installation of 4 windows and changes in windows openings at 1819 West Boulevard have been pursued, and that all possible planning to minimize harm to the historic property has been taken. That is the motion on the floor. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Let's take a quick roll call just to be safe on this.
Olson? Kroger? Costello?
No.
Adcock?
No.
LaCroy? Martinson? No. Wyffenbach? No. Wah? No. Chapman? No. Quaker?
Okay, motion fails on a 7-3 vote. So we do not have a valid motion, and our city, so that is correct. The motion on the floor, Jason, help us out here. The motion is to not find that all feasible and prudent alternatives to the installation have been. Is that correct?
I would phrase it slightly different. To find that all feasible and prudent alternatives have not been exhausted, and that all prudent or all planning has not been made to minimize the impact to the historic property.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the motion is that they have not been met. Before we vote on this, what does that give, who gives what authority to do what now?
Okay.
If that motion passes.
This motion passes, Jason, where does it move on from here?
It leaves the Schmitz in the position of having to bring something else forward to the Historic Preservation Commission, because what the council is finding is that all prudent alternatives have not been explored, all planning has not taken place. It's possible that further alternatives could be explored and planning could take place, and the council could come back to this at a later time. But at this point, it essentially refers the matter back to Historic Preservation for further proceedings.
Okay. Malcolm,
just a question, Mr. Mayor. How is that any different, really, than where we were? I mean, I don't see a difference in that the Schmitz now have to go back before Historic Preservation and have a conversation with them about options at this point. I guess before we vote, so if they can't get along or come up with some sort of options, then what?
Jason?
Then I would expect at some point the Historic Preservation Commission to ask this council to take some enforcement action of some nature.
Just last question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
If we vote affirmatively on this, the issue that's before us, that in itself doesn't make the Schmitz take the windows out.
Jason?
Not today, it doesn't. It could eventually.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Marcia, did you have a comment?
I need to clarify that there's been work done on this house without a valid building permit. We've been staying action on that because this issue pending before you. So I don't believe you need to take any action. I think that your failure to approve the motion leaves us back.
We have advice from our city attorney, so I'm not going to let you alter.
I appreciate that, but I do need to make you aware of the fact that there is outstanding violation of the building codes.
Very good. Thank you. Now, just for clarification, let's see. I did go back to Alderman Malcolm Chapman actually for a third time, and so I'm going to give everyone else the opportunity. That was my mistake. Nope, you're right. This is a separate motion. Thank you. Yeah, you want to talk again? Okay. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Wow. So, can I ask Marcia a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Marcia, at this point, with an outstanding building permit, you're saying we don't have to take action because they need to tell me what you're saying, if you would, ma'am.
You're going to get me in trouble here, so I think I'll not answer your question.
I think we're asking you a question, so
But
I appreciate
my issue
it.
is that there's an outstanding code violation. They've done work without a building permit, and I'm obligated to pursue that issue. And staff will be contacting the owner of the property to pursue that. So that will be back in front of them to resolve the issue.
And that would be your job.
That's my obligation.
Thank you, ma'am. And then it seems like at this time it brings solution, and I would hope at this point that the Historic Preservation would work with the Smiths to find a solution, and that hopefully with this council, having them go back to the Historic Preservation, that it brings solution to this and hopefully an end. And if you feel like you can't do that, I think then there's issues. But I truly believe that you guys can find some solution in this without any problems. You just got to be able to communicate and figure out what's going to be best and still help yourselves out. And if you need a couple more council members, there are some people I don't mind, and I'm sure some other council members don't mind being there again. So thank you.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just want to make a comment because I can't help myself. But this, what this alludes to is a bigger thing of obviously going back to like the Franklin Street, where the people out there, them poor people in right off of Mount Rushmore Road, who have the private sewers there, who are unexpectant of what happens when they buy those houses. And I wish we would have had this spirited debate when we talked about nailing those people for thousands of dollars on those 80-year-old sewer lines over there. So I'm hoping, and I think that we can make something good come out of this, and look at a process that puts in place that when people buy these houses over there, there's no questions that come to this arena that say that they didn't know. So I think there'll be something good that comes out of here, even though it seems like a little torture. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no further lights. We're going to go to the motion on the floor. And Jason, help us. Let's read it one more time.
To find that all feasible and prudent alternatives have not been explored and that all possible planning to minimize the harm has not taken place.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Let's take a quick roll call, please.
Kroger, Costello,
Aye.
Adcock,
Aye.
LaCroy,
No.
Martinson, Weifenbach, Wah, Chapman, Boyker,
No.
Olson,
Okay, motion passes on a 7-3 vote. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. We are on to item number 81, please.
Item 81 is a request from the Cowboy Fast Draw Association to hold a fast draw contest at Cabela's on July 18 and 19, 2009. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have received a certificate of insurance that I believe is acceptable. However, I would recommend that the council condition its approval upon a final inspection of the site and the procedures to be used by the Rapid City Police Department. I believe that the applicant is in concurrence with that.
That's what I said.
Good. Okay, so that's all right with the motion maker and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we could have the chief challenge one of them guys to a draw.
Actually, I don't know. Chief used to be on the sharpshooting team, didn't you? A long time ago. Yeah, that's true. You have to draw fast, though. Okay, motion. Okay, I'm getting off topic myself. Okay, motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Is that all right, Jason? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 82, please.
Item 82 is appointment of Wade Morris and Elizabeth Runquist to the Rapid City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Move approval.
We have a motion, second for approval, and discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Item 83, please.
Item 83 is confirm reappointment of Gary Brown and Dennis Langeth and the appointment of Eric Brown to the Planning Commission. Move approval.
We have a motion, second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 84, please.
Item 84, event permit for Hotel Alex Johnson for 5 parking spots in front of the Mercantile on St. Joseph Street on Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. during Summer Nights festivals in downtown Rapid City through September. Yield to the floor.
Okay, can we have a motion, please? Karen?
Thank you. We discussed it earlier in the day that, in fact, the barrier, as per the discussion of the last meeting, that barriers were created that allowed access to the parking without interfering with the very nice children's programming that goes on 7th Street in behalf of Summer Nights. And thanks to our Parks Department, they took the initiative and did do that, and it certainly appeared to me to be working well, and if anyone can confirm that, I would say that this is probably not a necessary change.
That is exactly what's happening.
And
I
so
think-
then, would you like a motion to? To table, okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second to table. No discussion on tabling the motion. Sorry, ma'am. All those
okay.
in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 85, please.
Item 85 is to authorize staff to draft an ordinance amendment to the 2006 International Residential Code to remove the requirement to field treat, cut, notch, and board ends of treated wood, and to change design requirements allowing walls more than 10 feet in height and up to 12 feet in height to be constructed using a prescriptive design, and to have a third-party engineer review the stud height design proposal. And Mayor, I would like to offer a motion to divide the question.
Okay.
I believe that these are two issues that we could discuss.
Hang on a second. So what you're asking for, Alderman Quaker, is divide the question as far as the height and also the treatment. Those would be the two specific items. Is that correct?
Yep. The
Okay,
field
and I
treatment would
believe
be
that-
separated from the.
I think that is divisible, so. Okay. See, we need to vote on the division, question of division. Okay, everyone clear on the motion? This is the division motion, so we'd actually take up the two issues separately. One would be the requirement to field treat the ends of the treated lumber, and the second would be the 10 to 12-foot height construction requirements. All those in favor of the division of the question signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Very good. Sam, why don't you go ahead and read in 85 and just read in the first part which deals with the field cuts, please.
Item 85 is to authorize staff to draft an ordinance amendment to the 2006 International Residential Code to remove the requirement to field treat, cut, notch, and board ends of treated wood, and I yield to the floor.
Okay, we have a motion, please.
I move to deny that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to deny. Any discussion on that motion? Let's call to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In discussing this at Legal and Finance, there seemed to be, the building community seemed to be in favor of this based on the discussion that I heard, and I would like to hear some additional confirmation to feel, not having expertise in whether a 10-foot or a 12-foot wall is the right solution to this. I would certainly like to know for sure what the professionals are telling us in regard to this issue.
Just for point of clarification, the wall height is not on the table right now.
Excuse me, the field treating, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So even, I want to make it crystal, I want to be sure that the professionals are telling us that field treating isn't necessary.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad this got split because I do, in some of the discussion that happened, when this first came up, we sent it back to the Residential Contractors Board to have a public meeting. They did that. But before that, there was concerns with, from what I remember of the Legal and Finance, that the Contractors Board felt it was hard to find the product to do the field treatment, but it's readily available. And also in the last meeting we had, you know, we're talking about treated lumber also, which is when they make the cut, it's untreated. If you end up having, an example that was used was a flood in your basement, that would affect that treated lumber. And so I'm not in support of bypassing a safety option for the homeowner just because it's a little inconvenient. On the second part, well, I won't talk about it, that's second. But I'm not in support of, I'm in support of they should field treat the lumber. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for denial. And the denial would be to allow the removal of the requirement to field treat, cut, notch, and board ends of treated lumber. In other words, it would still be a requirement. Okay? Any further discussion? Okay? Who did you want to direct it to? Marcia, do you want, let's go.
I'd be glad to answer that question. This item was sent back to the Residential Contractor Board. They recommended approval of this change. Staff has not recommended that. We presented the information to that board. However, the board did feel it was appropriate to change the ordinance, and that's the obligation for us to bring that forward for your consideration.
Okay. I'm going to go to Malcolm Chapman, and then I'm Karen. If you'd want something else, please just turn your light. Let's go to Alderman. Okay, very good. We're back to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
still don't feel like I've gotten a professional opinion about this. I mean, I'm frankly confused. And I guess in view of being confused, I'll probably vote no.
Okay, Marcia?
Again, similar to when items, staff makes a recommendation to the planning commission, but planning commission may make an alternative recommendation to you, where we bring back to you the planning commission's recommendation. In this case, staff recommended to the residential contractor board that we not make this change. However, the residential contractor board did find it was appropriate, and that's what comes forward to you. So the residential contractors board, which is composed of members, residential contractors, has recommended approval of this.
Okay, Kieran, you still have the floor, ma'am.
How would you characterize that conversation? Since this is, this appears to be related to safe building standards for homes.
Marcia?
What was explained to me by Brad, who attended that meeting, was that there was conversation at the time that some of the contractors weren't aware of the products. The staff did identify those products and identified the research that they'd done. Brad did present that to the committee when this came forward last week. And despite that information, the Residential Contractors Board felt it was appropriate to change the ordinance.
Okay.
I think, and I will continue to be voting. Is the motion on the floor is to deny, in which case then I would be voting to affirm. I would be voting in favor of the motion on the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask Marcia a question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Marcia, what are we talking about, cutting a treated piece of lumber? Say if it's like on a footing or something, if you cut it, they have to treat the end of it?
Correct. That's what the code currently requires.
Isn't the whole lumber already treated?
No, as was presented to the committee, Brad Solon reviewed that that's only externally treated. It doesn't go through the entire piece of wood, and that's why the ends need to be
Mr.
treated.
Mayor, I have another question.
Go ahead, please.
This was adopted by the International Residential Code, so there must be a reason that makes sense for the homeowner?
Marcia?
Yes. And again, the Residential Contractors Board felt it was appropriate that that could be waived. They felt that that would not endanger the homeowner or safety issues, but again.
I also see, yeah, I'm not going to touch that one, but thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, I spent half the day today working on my house that had some rotted wood from water exposure, and so that's why I'm not in favor of this, because I've been treating both sides with stuff. So I think it's appropriate to deny this. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for denial. Any further discussion? Seeing no lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That is denied. Alderman Quake, could you read in the second half of item 85, please?
The second part of 85 is to authorize staff to draft an ordinance amendment to change the design requirements allowing walls more than 10 feet in height and up to 12 feet in height to be constructed using a prescriptive design, and to have a third-party engineer review the stud height design proposal. Move approval.
Do we have a second, please? Second. We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
This is going to bring back the same thing. I guess I would like to know why that determination came to pass on a 10 or 12-foot wall, and what safety factors will be used on that in order for us to reassure that this would be good for changing an international building code on.
Marcia?
Again, currently up to 10 foot, there's a chart included in the code that says if you do this, then you're complying. If you go beyond 10 foot in height, then you have to have a stamped drawing prepared by a structural engineer. What the Residential Contractors Board Committee has suggested is that there be a new drawing come up with that would be a standard, and if you did it in accordance with that, that would be allowed without having to get it stamped individually. They've asked us in that last part of the requirement to retain a third-party engineer to review that standard proposal before we would move forward with this at the actual ordinance amendment stage. Again, this did not come forward with staff's recommendation, but it is the Residential Contractors Board recommendation to you.
And you've done a lot of buildings, Marcia, and you've approved a lot of them. On this standard, to me, it seems like in this case, because it's getting a third-party engineer, what do you think?
Marcia?
Since you've seen this and you're with growth management, you know if these standards are going to work or not work. So I hate to put you on the spot, but I think you know if this is working or not with the third-party engineer. Have you had any problems with this?
Marcia?
Third-party engineer costs the home builder additional money, and that's, I think, the concern on this. I'm going to be relying on what that third-party engineer that we retain as the city looks at that, and if they're comfortable with that, then I'd be comfortable moving forward with it. So I think that's really the next step. We have a contract pending. We wanted to see what the council wanted to do tonight, but we would take that drawing to Mike Albers. We have, as I indicated, a contract pending, and if he feels that he can recommend that, then I would bring that forward to you for your consideration.
One more question.
Go ahead, please.
And they decided that they wouldn't mind paying that third-party engineer that extra money in order to not have to go through this step.
In essence, they're asking the city
to do that.
To do that one time rather than having individual property owners have to do that when they come forward.
Thank you, Marcia, for your answers.
Okay. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
In the linked information, there's a table, and it appears to be some changes reflecting the 12-foot, and that is the table that will become the basis for the decision making. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry, I don't have that table right in front of me.
It's size, height, and spacing of wood studs. Mr. Mayor, if I could comment, I mean, it certainly
Go
appears
ahead.
that the table is the important safety feature for this. And I just want to make sure that what I'm looking at is the proposed table. It does reflect changes from 10 foot to 12.
That is correct. This is the proposed changes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to anything else, Alderwoman Olson? Okay, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Marcia, because
Okay, please.
I don't build very many 10 or 12-foot walls, but I can imagine that they'd be used in different applications. How can we just have, I mean, how can you have them sign off on one 10 or 12-foot wall and have them use it in any application? It doesn't seem to make sense to me, but I'm not an engineer.
Marcia?
That would be part of the conversation that would go on with Mr. Albers is how uniform that application is, and that'd be some of the information I'd want to have to be able to present to you.
So Mr. Albers would be the one that would, he'd look at these and say yay or nay, but he wouldn't stamp them?
Marcia?
He would look at the general standard and say, we would ask him, is this something that could be applied universally, like the existing table, or is this something that we should continue to have individually stamped? And that was part of the residential contractor's recommendation, was to go through that step before this was finally adopted.
Okay. Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Now, there again, this is to authorize the staff to draft the ordinance. This is actually not amending the ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? I'm going to take a roll call. Just there again, point of clarification. The motion on the floor is to authorize the staff to draft an ordinance amendment to the 2006 International Residential Code to change the design requirements allowing walls more than 10 feet in height and up to 12 feet in height to be constructed using a prescriptive design, and to have a third-party engineer review the stud height design proposal. He wouldn't be reviewing each one. In other words, he would be reviewing our policy. Okay? Go ahead and take the roll, please.
Costello?
Aye.
Adcock? Oh, sorry. LaCroy?
Aye.
Martinson? Weifenbach? Wah? Chapman? Quaker?
Aye.
Olson? Broger?
Motion passed on a 5-4 vote, correct? And since this is actually not adopting an ordinance, this is strictly authorizing the staff to move forward, we're good on a 5-4 vote. Okay? Thank you, everyone. We're on to the Public Works items. Alderman Kroger, could you please read in item number 86, please?
Item number 86 is a request by Bruce Backens for the Scotty Backens Memorial Statue. I would move to acknowledge the report and recognize that the applicant will be forwarding this to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and then to the Planning Commission for SDCL 11-6-19 review, and then back to the City Council with an agreement to accept the structure. That's my motion.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Or to acknowledge, correct? To acknowledge. This is going to go back to Parks and Rec and also through the 11-6-19 review. Any further discussion on that motion? Motion to acknowledge. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 87, please.
Item number 87 is a request by Stephen Dunn for Black Hills Power to consider an application for a fence height exception to allow an 8-foot high fence with barbed wire in the low-density residential district located east side of 5th Street between Cleveland and Oakland Street. Marcia, the recommendation was approved with stipulations. What were the stipulations that we come out with?
Marcia.
The committee recommended that you approve it with the applicant bringing forward a revised fence design, which has been attached. Actually, I sent it out to you on Thursday afternoon, so that you'd have a chance to look at it. So that is the information in terms of the concrete fence. That's what they've presented, that they would put a concrete fence up around a portion of the site.
Okay, that, Mayor, is going to be my motion, but my understanding from Black Hills Power is they're not locked into a concrete fence, so my understanding would be this motion then would allow the residents in that area to work with Black Hills Power for another feasible fence that would work for all of them.
Marcia?
If this fence is not acceptable to the council, then I would suggest that you send this item back to the committee and continue the formal public hearing that's being held tonight to your next council meeting, so that those discussions can go on what kind of fence would be appropriate. If you approve the motion tonight, then you're approving the concrete fence is the way I would understand it.
Okay, I put that motion on the floor and I'm going to withdraw it.
Is there any objection to withdrawing the motion? Any objection? If not, the chair will deem that the motion has been withdrawn. So anyone wish to entertain a motion for, let's see, Alderman Weifenbach, did you want to talk or offer a motion? We should really get a motion on the floor.
I don't know what kind of motion that I would place on the floor. I mean,
There can be a motion. Let me just, there's two options here. We can actually send this back to, was this Legal and Finance, I believe is where I came from?
Public Works.
Public Works, to have them review it as far as the type of fence, or you can approve it, and if you approve it tonight, then you'd be approving a fence height exception as a concrete fence.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, please.
I could make some recommendations of going with a wrought iron fence, like that was down at DSG with some pillars, or maybe partly a concrete fence with wrought iron fence on top of it, specifically for safety. I mean, if I had my ruthers, I'd have Chris Angel come here and make this thing disappear, so nobody can see it. But I don't think that's going to work. So I guess if we could make a motion or do we send it to Public Works and come back with something like a wrought iron fence or a half concrete with a wrought iron on top of it? I don't really want to obstruct anybody's views there. I mean, the concrete seems really intrusive, and there may be a lot of issues with it, but a part of a 4-foot concrete would be a little bit of safety for people coming down that hill. I'm not sure if people are aware of it, but years ago I had a cousin of mine that ran into one of them green boxes, and when she hit the green box and they got stuck and they got to get out of the car, and she stepped on one of them green boxes and it electrocuted her and killed her. So I have some concern about the safety issue of the cars coming down the hill there. Like I think Mr. Lewis spoke earlier that they sometimes get cars in their yard and things like that. So if there was a like a 4-foot concrete fence there with the wrought iron on top, I think it would look nice. So I'm not sure how we.
I think the appropriate tack would be to actually make a motion to send this back to Public Works in order for the council to review revised fence height plan or fence plans.
That would be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, I guess, somewhere in that motion, it's understood that Mr. Dunn, I believe, said there's a willingness to work with the neighborhood. So somewhere in there, they will have these discussions. I guess I have a question for Mr. Dunn.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question, please.
I think, well, legal and, or public works is next week. Is that enough time for you to have discussion, or would it make more sense to you from a time standpoint to continue this item out a little bit farther?
So you're a week out, is that what you
Yep,
said?
it'd be a week from tomorrow. Now, keep in mind, we can always continue it at that meeting also.
Exactly.
Okay, we could probably do something by then. We'll come up with something.
Okay.
I'll support the motion.
Very good. Motion on the floor is to send this item back to Public Works. Marcia.
Could the motion include also that you continue tonight's public hearing to the following council meeting, so I don't have to send a third set of notices out?
Very good. I thought it was. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is to send this back to Public Works and continue the public hearing. All those in favor, seeing no additional lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 88, please.
Item number 88 is request to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance at 3671 Corral Drive. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second to waive the requirements to install a sidewalk per city ordinance 12-16-080 at 3671 Corral Drive. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate a point, or take off from a point where Alderwoman Olson started. This is an area adjacent to a grade school that has no sidewalks, and as was testified to by the person who's asking for the warp, saying that it's a dangerous situation for kids. Cars speed, people drop their kids off at any spot along the road. If you look at if we have pictures available, you can see that there's, basically they need sidewalks. So what we're thinking here is that the plan, and perhaps Marcia or Robert could elaborate on this, is to, with this warp in place, start a dialogue with the residents around there, telling them sidewalks need to go in here. How can we help you make this happen? So, just put that out there. Thank you.
The answer be have the city pay for it. Okay, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure this is the one we put the warp on earlier.
Yes.
Okay, I can be in favor of that, and with Mr. Ellis taking the ball on this one, I feel comfortable. Thank
That
you.
was item number 79 is what that was. Okay, let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Historically, this street has been a country street, and it is increasingly not a country street anymore, and there are children in the neighborhood, and so I think every effort, and we talked about various additional funding methods. I know there's a granting program with safe routes to school, should be explored in terms of additional funding sources that would make this sidewalk a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. My experience with waivers of right to protest is that people will protest anyway, and I'm not really sure what the point is of passing a waiver of right to protest. I think that this council needs to take a look at some of the other experiences that we've had over the years with sidewalks and realize you have to start somewhere. And although this might be unpleasant for this particular landowner to do, I think we should not pass this waiver of right to protest tonight. We should either continue it or deny it and force the sidewalk to go in. I remember the discussion that we've had over the years with the Safe Streets Task Force. There's been other discussions on forcing and ordering in sidewalks in other parts of town. In some cases, the debate over sidewalks has literally gone on since the 1940s. I use the example of St. Patrick Street. And so I think we need to decide, and I would encourage the council to either continue this item so that we can do what Alderman Costello has suggested, or that we deny this item and do what Alderman Costello has suggested. But I do not suggest that we approve the waiver of right to protest and then talk about it, because all we'll do is talk about it and nothing will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval of a request to waive the requirement to install sidewalks per city ordinance 12-16-080 at 3671 Corral Drive. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's do a roll call, please.
Hadcock? LaCroy?
No.
Martinson? Wyffenbach? Wah? Chapman? Quaker? Olson? Broger?
Aye.
Costello?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes on an 8-2 vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Let's see. We do have an amendment 88A. Sam, did you have that in your binder there? Lost steer, yes. If you could please read that in so the steer can be found.
Set for hearing on July 20, 2009, lost year license for retail on-off sale malt beverage license, no video lottery, move to set for hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to set for hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Mr. Preston, the bids.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a number of bid items on the, this evening. First one is the street rehabilitation project, Copperfield Drive area project. We received 3 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Simon Contractors of South Dakota Incorporated in the amount of $176,797.
We have a motion and second to award the bid to Simon Contractors of South Dakota for a total dollar amount of $176,797. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Second bid item is the 2009 pavement marking project. We received 2 bids as listed. Staff is recommending we reject all bids and be authorized to go out for bids again.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reject all bids and authorize staff to go back out for rebidding. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps this question is for Mr. Ellis. Why such a large discrepancy between the engineer's estimate and the bids that came through?
Mr. Ellis.
We're baffled by that too. We used last year's bid prices, same product, really nothing has changed in the industry. The prices have gone up 100%, so I can't explain why.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to reject all bids. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Wyffenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is probably obvious, for Mr. Ellis. If we rebid this, I mean, have we asked the question? Why the difference?
Mr. Ellis.
We'll explore that. What we're going to do when we re-advertise, we'll look at a different product. There are several different types of painting liquids that you can use. This is an epoxy. There's polyureas. They're completely different application methods. So we have several different products to choose from. We'll probably visit with those in the industry and find out what the reason for this product being so high, what's happening with some of the other products.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Is it not so in the past there's been a third bidder typically on this kind of a project, and perhaps that's...
Robert?
That is correct. There was another big player in the pavement marking installation business, and they're currently out of business, so that probably has something to do with it as well.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Ellis. Robert, why do we wait so long into the season to do the pavement marking?
Mr. Ellis?
A lot of time we try to avoid the wet season, the rainy season, because it just delays the project. It also is bad to have any type of moisture, whether it's humidity in the air. It does affect the life of the pavement marking, so it's best to do it when it's nice and hot and dry, and this is the time of the year it's best to put it down.
Okay, I guess my only comment is probably an edge with a sword with 2 edges on it, because if you wait too long in the season, the tourists are all gone, the wet season is gone, and I think that's when you have a problem trying to figure out where you're driving down the road is during when the roads are wet. So that's all I had.
Yep, very good. Motion on the floor is to reject all bids and authorize staff to go out for new bids. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Next bid item is street rehabilitation project, Mahoney, Dakota Ridge, West Omaha, and Hale Street area project. We received 2 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Hills Materials Company in amount $249,849.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Hills Material Company for a total dollar amount $249,849. Any discussion on that motion? Ron, we still had your light on. Was that from last time? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes.
Next bid item is sanitary sewer extension, East Boulevard Block 110 original town site. We received 6 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bids from Simon Contractors of South Dakota Incorporated, the amount of $55,529.50.
Okay, we have motion and second to accept the bid from Simon Contractors of South Dakota, Inc. for a total dollar amount of $55,529.50. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little bit of a quick math in my head there. With that bid process on those 3 items saved anywhere from $50,000 to $85,000. Thank you, Mr. Preston.
Yep. So we have money to go out and do more projects. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes.
And the last bid item is the Tower Road Water Main Project. We received 7 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Highmark Incorporated, which includes the base bid and plus the alternate number 1 in the amount of $217,358.75.
We have a motion and second to accept the bid from Highmark Inc. for a total dollar amount of $217,358.75, which is the total base bid plus alternate 1. Discussion on that motion. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That does get us through the bids. There's nothing under Mayor's items. We have a 93A, which is to acknowledge the MDA Fill the Boot report. We have motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
First of all, I'd like to ask, we asked for a resolution on the Fill the Boot, and whatever happened to the resolution that we were going to have? Jason Green. Hi, Jason. The Fill the Boot resolution, did we ever get that done?
I guess so.
We had directed staff to do a resolution for the Fill the Boot.
We did a resolution to support it. Are you talking about
Yes.
something afterwards? We've actually approved that, and that's actually been delivered, hasn't it, Jim?
Okay. I don't remember seeing it, but imagine that. I think we can do better with the resolution that we had, if that's the one we were talking about, just to acknowledge it. I don't know how we change it so it's a little bit better than that on just a resolution, because being one of the people that stood out there, people are coming, you have to go out to the street to get the money. So I don't know how we would do it better or what we could do different on that resolution. Maybe I could talk to Jason about that, but seems either way you have to go out. Even if you're standing in a parking lot, you still have to go out to the street and get the money. But long story short, maybe we could do better at something of how we do the program. So I know it's not legal, and Jason's shaking his head like he knows, but I believe we can do better at that resolution and how we do this program to make it both work. Number 2, thank you, firemen, for all the work you've done on this. Wow, awesome job. Raised $35,000, almost $36,000. Thank you for the public support. Rapid City is awesome. They've come out for many events, many nonprofit events, and this event, and we appreciate the public support. Again, this builds camaraderie council for the firemen of the Rapid City Fire Department, and what a great program. And again, thank you council for supporting this, and thank you, firemen, for doing such a great job, and Heather as well, your program director.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the fire department for their hard work on this. I think it goes to an awesome cause, and I appreciate them making up an excuse for not having gotten the amount of money they received last year. But now that we found out who that council person was out there collecting, we thoroughly understand now what happened there. So I just wanted to make one comment. I thought that the previous year would seem to be a little bit more easier to access you guys, so I'm hoping that maybe we can work towards something that allows you to get back out in there and not have to pull into the parking lots. And it just, I think that the little more access to you guys would make it easier for the citizens to give their money up to you guys and make it easier for you guys to function. So I'm thinking moving forward, we may look at some other ideas to get you back out.
Well, point of order on.
Thank you. Thank you guys
Okay.
again, and I thank all the people that you support.
Let me see if I can get control again. The other thing, I don't see any additional lights. Let me just add my 2 cents. What a wonderful job you guys do. And this is sort of a little fact. I assume it's the same thing this year as it was last year. That City of Rapid City Fire Department actually collects in Rapid City as much as the rest of the state combined. And actually, it was quite a bit more than the rest of the state combined. So absolutely tremendous effort. Matter of fact, it seems to me Sioux Falls does like $8,000 or $10,000. Is that something like that? You know, we do 36,000. So just shame on Sioux Falls. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to. Let's see. That was just a report. I think we just need to acknowledge. Okay. We have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We do have a 93B, and that is Patty Martinson, discussion on Miss Wheelchair America, which is coming to Rapid City.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Miss Wheelchair America is a national pageant, and Terry and Carol Charlton were successful in getting the pageant to be hosted here in Rapid City. And you see a flyer and an explanation of the Miss Wheelchair America, and they are looking for additional assistance and volunteers or money. And the Mayor's Group on Disability was kind enough to contribute $500 to the fundraising efforts. And I just wanted to bring this up to the awareness of the council.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I'd like to give Patty Martinson kudos for helping the Mayor's Committee with Disabilities. What an awesome job she's done. She not only helped with bringing this forward, but many things with Scotty Backins and some other programs that she's doing. You've done an awesome job, and I just wanted to give you kudos, Patty, and make sure the council and the city and the public know how much work you've done with the people, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure this council does. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Let's just get a motion to acknowledge, if we could, please. We have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 94, update on the current revenue stream from finance, sales tax and property tax, and direction on 2009-2010 budget. This is Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had put this on the agenda previous to your presentation at Public Works, so on the revenue and the sales tax, but I just wanted to see if anybody knew when we would be doing the budget period of time, if we have a time frame and manner for that too. I think a year or two ago we ended up doing it during the rally, which made it really tough on people, and I'm hoping that we can, I think it was because of a time crunch or something that happened, so I'm hoping we can get around that. And
okay. What we will do is we'll get together with council leadership tomorrow and start looking at dates, and there's also been a request to actually do some late afternoon, evening sessions instead of just all day sessions. So we'll take a look at those options, and we'll actually email the council and see what their preference is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. And on that note, I would also like to see, if possible, that we do the budget hearings like we did in 2007 and in a number of past years where we had a number of evening meetings where we broke up the budget into several sessions rather than having two one-day or 2 all-day sessions, which I think is a long time to be in meetings, and I think it's also difficult for the public to attend. So I would like to encourage council leadership to at least schedule a few of the budget sessions to be in the evening, and I think we're more effective when we break it up a bit. I would also like to address the item that's, Mayor, if I can, that's
Sure.
on the agenda, and that is, I would like to, at the budget hearings, I would like to have a better understanding and a better explanation of how we determine both how the numbers are looking within the current year, and also to determine how we come up with the assumptions in sales tax revenue for future years. My understanding is that up until the 2009 budget, at least as long as I can remember, the assumption for sales tax in the general fund was an increase of 3% over previous years. And of course, it's always historically, except for this year, come in higher than that, and that was a very conservative number. For 2009, it was adjusted to 4%, and I want to point out that that 1 percentage point is very significant, because on a $20 million approximately portion of the sales tax budget, 1% is equal to about $200,000. And so in between now and the time we have our budget hearings, the other thing I'm trying to get my arm around, in addition to the issue of the assumptions, is how we report within the current year how things are going. And I think part of this has to do with reporting on a cash basis versus accrual basis. But I would like to ask the council, and I can send everybody this link as well, but on the state's website, state.sd.us/DRR2, as in Department of Revenue and Regulation number 2, /business tax, all one word, /statistics, /2009, /2009.htm. The third link down is municipal tax due per city comparison. It's a new report that they started publishing 1 of 2009. It shows a comparison of municipal tax due reported this month to the same month in the previous year, grouped by city. This report matches the amount of sales use in municipal gross receipts tax to each city per month. And when I look at those reports, it's showing that we, on a cash basis, appear to be about 1.3% down. I contacted the Department of Revenue to make sure that there wasn't an issue relating to reporting by zip code. I received confirmation from them that it is indeed a reporting by the municipality and not by zip code. So it should be a fairly accurate cash basis number. I would encourage all the council to take a look at this report. And then I would also like to understand, either tonight or at a future meeting, where the 1.25% number that we had heard in previous meetings came from in comparison to the state's negative 1.3% number, because the difference in reality is about $400,000. And so I'm just hoping to have some information on that issue.
Yeah, very good. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that, yes, tomorrow we will be starting on looking at setting the budget time. We'll be sitting down with Mr. Preston and Mr. Hanks and be sending out emails to find out what schedule is going to work best. And so your input is very important. If you guys have specific dates that do not work, please email Kay, and we'll be organizing the time and place to start doing this. And if you have specific times that work, please let us know. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Don't see any further lights. Can we just get a motion to acknowledge? Okay, we have motion and second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Let's see, that takes us to item number 95, update 2012. Mr. Ellis, what do you have?
Thank you, Mayor. I have just two brief updates to give the council. The first is on page 5. If you see under downtown parking ramp, third level addition, that project has been finalized out. There was a final change order for construction and a final amendment for design Project is completed, and it is $80,966 under budget. The second project to report on, and that's located on page 6, the Parkview Tennis Courts. There was a construction change order in the amount to the city of $741, and those are the only 2 reports I have.
Very good. Let's see. Let's get a motion. Let's get a motion on the floor, and then we'll take some debate. Just thank you. We have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Preston, our finance guy. The question I would pose is how does the fluctuation of the sales tax revenue affect the 2012 budget? Or if you're not prepared to present that tonight, maybe we could get that in a future council meeting.
Okay, Mr. Preston, you understand the question?
Mayor, what I understand is how the sales tax affects the budget.
No, the 2012, the sales tax revenues. If we have a decrease in sales tax revenue from what we bonded for 2012, I mean, where are we at with that? Is that
okay? That's something I'll have to.
Okay, that's fine.
But I think the short answer is it's almost a mere reflection of the effect that it has on the first penny, which is the general fund. In essence, that's what it is.
It is.
Because it is the second half of the second penny, so it is actually the same dollar amount. So if you're down 1% or up 1% in your general sales tax, it reflects directly upon the 2012.
Right. So does that affect our bonding for that 2012 projects that were in the works?
I'll let Mr. Preston look into that. I don't believe so.
Yes, at some future, I just thought since we're having that conversation, that might be something we need to be privy to. So
typically, just when we're talking about bonding, one of the requirements of the bonding companies is that we have so much within reserves, and so
Sure.
usually there's a built-in reserve there. But we'll get that information to you. Anything else, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that we should have have more information on this, perhaps a 2012 committee meeting or another opportunity to take a look at that spreadsheet and see what the impact would be of the declining numbers. If the Department of Revenue numbers are correct and sales taxes are coming in, and I'm hoping that we have an extremely good summer, if the current numbers for 09 hold true and we're 1.3% down, that means we're 5.3% down because we need 4% over the previous year to meet 2012 projections. Each percentage point is worth $200,000. So by my calculation, we would be down $1 million. And so I hope the math that I'm doing up here is wrong, but I had checked my numbers and checked the state's numbers. I think we need to have that discussion because I specifically remember we're sitting down on the floor going over 2012 projections, and there was a motion, this is back in 06, some time ago, where there was a motion offered and it passed to adjust the 2012 revenue stream from 3% to 4%. And if I remember right, there was some wincing, including wincing from our finance department on doing that because there was 1 year there where we were going to be real close to not quite making it. And we could still do it, but we were walking right up to the edge. Well, folks, we need to have a serious discussion because I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to meet our bond and project obligations. And I think we need to have that spreadsheet put back up there. We need to have that discussion. And I think the discussion should happen sooner rather than later.
Okay. We will certainly get that information. I will tell you that the accumulative effect is the fact that when we always make projections, it's based upon 3 plus 3. In other words, we take a specific year at 3% to the actual and then 3% after that. You have to keep in mind, up until recently, our sales tax have been coming in at 6, and we've been projecting at 4. But let's get before we get making statements out there that may alarm folks, let's get the facts on the table. We'll get the numbers back to you. Like I say, let's deal with facts. That's the appropriate thing to do. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I guess I was going where the mayor was going. I was just wondering where the numbers came from, and until we get those numbers and those facts, I think it would be a good idea to wait and see. and be appropriate to make sure we're saying what to the public, what is really happening. I appreciate you bringing those forward, Mayor, and we get the facts on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is to acknowledge. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the public hearing items 96 through 113. 16 to 113. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to open the public comment period on items 96 through 113 inclusive. We have one speaker request form. Janelle Fink, she has been here very patiently.
Oh, so patiently.
You can go have some cake. I think there's some cake left, Janelle. Item 112. Go ahead, please. You'd identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Fink. I'm agent with Fisk Land Surveying here on behalf of Sandra Fredrickson for item 112. And she would like to request your support of the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission on this item. And she asked that I attend this evening to be able to provide additional information or answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Janelle. Okay, now we do need to leave the public hearing open at this time. We're on to the continued public hearing consent items. This is items 96 through 103. It says here staff has nothing to pull. Does anyone from the council want to pull any items 96 through 103 inclusive? If so, please turn on your light. Nope. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the continued public hearing consent items, item 96 through 101, please. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent items per the recommendation listed. 96, 97, 98, 99 will be continued to the July 20th, 2009 meeting. Item 100 to the August 3rd meeting, and 101 to the October 2009 meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the end of the continued public hearing consent items. Chair look for a motion to close the public hearing items on items 96 through 113 inclusive. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on items 96 through 113 inclusive. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the consent public hearing items 102 through 109. Says staff doesn't have anything to pull. Anyone from the council wish to pull any item from the consent public hearing items 102 through 109 inclusive? If so, please turn on your light. Seeing no lights, chair would look for a motion to approve the consent public hearing items 102 through 109 inclusive. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent public hearing calendar. We're on to the non-consent public hearing items, item 110 through 113. Item 110, please. Mr. Kroger, could you read that in for us?
Item 110 is a request by Olson Development Company Incorporated for a vacation of a section line highway located at 2000 Golden Eagle Drive. I would move approval with stipulations.
We have a motion and a second for approval stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. 111, please.
Item 111 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Tom Rao and Dana Vogt for a vacation of a right-of-way located at 2809 and 2812 Frontier Drive. I would move approval with stipulations.
We have a motion and second for approval stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. 112, please.
Item 112 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Sandra Fredrickson for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to dedicate additional right-of-way, to reduce the pavement width, and to waive the requirement to provide sidewalk, curb gutter, streetlight conduit, water, and sewer along Red Cliff Terrace, and to allow a 5-foot wide utility and minor drainage easement along the westerly line of the proposed Lot 1 in lieu of an 8-foot wide easement, and to waive the requirement to provide a 10-foot wide planting screen easement along Jackson Boulevard located at 4330 Jackson Boulevard. For discussion, I would move to deny with prejudice on part and to approve in part with stipulations as per the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny in part without prejudice and approve in part with stipulations as per the Planning Commission's recommendations. Discussion on that motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Janelle, have a good night. Item 113.
Item 113 is request by CTEC Engineering Services Incorporated for Rapid Valley Sanitary Sewer District to consider an application for a fence height exception to allow a 7-foot high fence in lieu of a 6-foot high fence in the office commercial zoning district located north of Twilight Drive on Reservoir Road. I would move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Preston, the bill list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $8,935,665.54. I'd like to add two items. One would be Grizzly Excavation. That's for the Alta Vista Drive Sanitary Sewer Extension, change order number 1 final for $800. And then the second would be the Warax Excavating. This is for East Nebraska Street Drainage Improvement, change order number 2 final for $568.85. Makes a new total of $8,937,034.39.
Okay, do we have a motion, please? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bill list as amended, totaling $8,937,034.39. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see, Mr. Green, do we have an executive session?
We do, and it would be for the purposes permitted by SDCL 1-25-2.
Okay, could we have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go in executive session for purposes permitted by STCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are in executive session. Thank you, everyone.
With the discussions in executive session regarding the contract negotiation matter.
Move for approval.
Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to state the motion one more time, Jason.
To proceed in accordance with the executive session on the contract negotiation matter.
Very good. Everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Look for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
No.
Yes. No. Okay.
You abstain from that one.
Okay, we have a motion second to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.